All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, in this explainer, we are tackling an absolutely critical topic from your Business and Technology, or BT syllabus. I need you focused and I need you energized right now, because today, we're going to master centralization versus decentralization. We are going straight into the examiner's mind to see exactly how they test this stuff, and more importantly, how you are going to secure every single mark available. Let's get right into it.
So here is a massive question to kick things off. How do well-prepared students, the ones who know the theory, who've done all the reading, how do they lose easy marks on Test A? Honestly, you probably know the feeling. You sit down, you see the exam, and you've got all these massive, intimidating scenarios going on. Then you look at the requirements and you just think, wow, okay, that is a lot of information. Where do I even begin? Because under that intense exam pressure, simple definitions suddenly start to blur together.
I say this to my students all the time. Just imagine that in a few months' time, and look, I really hope this doesn't happen to you, but imagine you end up with 48 or 49 marks. The absolute agony of landing right there. You'd be so incredibly frustrated, right? Because if you had just nailed one more question, just remembered one more basic definition, you would have gotten over the line and passed. Well, that is not going to be you. We are putting in the effort right now to make sure you grab these specific easy marks.
Section 1, the head-to-head matchup, centralization versus decentralization.
Okay, let's start with centralization. I want you to lock this exact definition into your mind right now. Centralization is all about decision-making at the top level. That's literally it. The power, the control, all the big strategic choices, they are held tightly by top management. So think of the CEO or the board of directors sitting at the very top of the hierarchy, dictating the moves for the entire organization. There is absolutely no sharing of the steering wheel here.
Now flip that completely upside down and we have decentralization. The definition you need to hardwire here is decision-making spread across levels. Notice that keyword, spread. Top management takes that power and pushes it down the chain of command. They empower various managers at completely different tiers of the business to make their own calls. So in this case, the steering wheel is essentially shared with the people who are closer to the ground.
Let's look at how these two structures actually perform out there in the real world, and of course, how they're going to be tested. Think of this like the tail of the tape. First up, control. Centralized is strictly top level. Decentralized is distributed. Next, speed. Now, the notes explicitly tell us that centralized is faster, while decentralized is slower. Why is that? Well, because when one person or a tiny group at the top makes a sweeping decision, it's just an immediate mandate. Done. But when decision-making is distributed, coordinating all those moving parts and waiting for various levels to decide can actually slow down the whole corporate machine. But wait, look at flexibility. Centralized has very low flexibility. A rigid top-down rule just doesn't adapt well to local, on-the-ground problems. Decentralized, however, extremely high flexibility. If a local manager spots a sudden change in their specific market, they have the power to pivot immediately without begging for permission from headquarters.
Section 2, the exam hacker playbook, dodging examiner traps.
All right, knowing the theory is one thing, but knowing how the examiner uses that theory to trap you, that is what separates a pass from a fail. We are going to hardwire your brain right now to spot these tricks. So here's your first mental flashcard. When you're reading a long, messy scenario in the exam, and you see a sentence that effectively says, top management decides everything, or maybe all approvals must come from the board. Boom. Stop reading right there. The answer is centralized. You really don't need to overthink it. Grab the mark and just move on.
And here is your second flashcard. If the scenario tells you managers at different levels decide, or regional directors are given autonomy to set their own budgets, what is the trigger there? It's different levels. The absolute second you see that power has been pushed down and away from the top, your brain needs to instantly shout, decentralized. Now, I need you to listen to me very carefully on this next point, because this right here is where good students just bleed marks. The absolute most common mistake in the exam hall is confusing delegation with decentralization. Guys, they are not the same thing. Delegation is just a manager giving a specific task to a subordinate. That's it. Decentralization, on the other hand, is a formal structural spread of decision-making power across the entire organization. So if a manager asks an assistant to go write a report, yeah, that's delegation. It does not mean the whole company is suddenly decentralized. Please, do not fall for that trap. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what true decentralization looks like in a practical exam scenario. Think about a setup where branch managers take decisions. This isn't just one manager delegating a single random task. This is a systemic feature. The role of the branch manager inherently includes the power to make choices for their branch. When the structure itself empowers those lower levels, that, my friends, is your textbook decentralized structure.
Section 3. The ultimate cheat code.
Okay, we are at the final hurdle. We've covered the definitions, we've gone through the characteristics, and we've exposed the examiner's favorite traps. Now I want to give you the single biggest takeaway you absolutely must memorize before you walk into that exam hall. Here is your one-line summary. Say it with me, write it down, lock it in. Central equals top, decentral equals spread. That is your ultimate weapon to cut through all the noise of a chaotic exam scenario. If they are talking about the top, it's central. If they're talking about the spread, it's decentral. It really is that simple if you just keep your focus.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final challenge. When you are sitting in that exam hall and you face a totally chaotic real-world business scenario full of distractors, which control structure are you going to spot first? Are you going to see the power at the top, or are you going to see the power spread out? Remember the cheat code, dodge that delegation trap, and go secure your marks. You've totally got this. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one. Keep practicing.